he still has a lot of support. There are a lot of people who want to see him back in the White House. The question is it enough? Is it enough for him to win the party's nomination? And depending, of course, on who the Democrats nominate, including Joe Biden, is it enough for him to win the election?
Donald Trump is on the campaign trail again. He gave speeches in New Hampshire and South Carolina over the weekend. He told Republicans that under Joe Biden, every day in the US is April Fool's Day. And he had this to say about Joe Biden's position on the war in Ukraine.
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it. As president, I will bring back peace through strength. I would have a peace deal negotiated within 24 hours.
There's a promise that seems unlikely. Conan Nolan is a political correspondent for NBC. He told us about Donald Trump's latest campaign events and how they contrasted with how he has campaigned before.
They were very different from what we've seen before. They weren't massive rallies. One of them in South Carolina was actually at the state capitol, which is sort of a venue he eschewed in the first two campaigns for president because he didn't want to be part of the establishment or be seen as part of the governmental establishment. But there he was at a state capitol. So it's a little bit of a different Donald Trump.
And what's he gonna rely upon? What are the themes he wants to push on? I've seen various sort of statements he's made, but does he ever? Because the first time through it was drain the swamp, and then second time through sort of keep me going in power. What's the new line from Trump? What's the new sell?
Well, what's interesting is that he kept talking after the 2022 election about how the election was stolen from him. But this time, I think he realized, and he may have he's maybe listening to some advisors who said that polls indicate that people are tired of him talking about the last election. And that was borne out in the November election last year when so many of his handpicked candidates didn't do well. And so what we saw this weekend was him, and over the past week, he's been releasing these videos talking about issues, talking about immigration, talking about the economy and bringing down taxes, and talking about Ukraine. That is a new Donald Trump, because up until now, the past 2 years, it's all been about how he had won the election and it would have been stolen from him. So he's making a calculation that in order for him to win back the kind of support he had previously, he needs to talk about what's happening now and look forward, as opposed to constantly looking backwards at the 2020 election.
And what's your sense of how his message is landing? I suppose the first constituency is the Republicans. He's got to get on the ticket, and then secondly, more broadly across America.
He's lost the novelty of his approach, and we know what Donald Trump is. We've seen him in office. It's not a surprise. There's nothing new to him. And there are Republicans within the status quo who normally would line up behind him, but are coming right out and saying there needs to be a good crop of candidates for this job. He can't be the only one. In South Carolina, for example, the former governor, Nikki Haley of South Carolina, who was his United Nations ambassador, she wasn't at his rally because she plans on running for president herself. There's a Republican named Tim Scott. He's black from South Carolina. He was very much a Trump supporter. He wasn't at the rally either because he's thinking about running for president. So we're looking at plenty of Republicans within the party who believe Donald Trump, certainly he's free to run and he still has a lot of support. But the fact is they need alternatives. And so I think you're going to have a very competitive primary election within the Republican Party in the United States to see whether or not Donald Trump still has the support he once had, well, back in 2016.
And at this point, you certainly couldn't call it for Trump now, could you?
No, not by a long shot. So much has to happen. But I have to tell you, he still has a lot of support. There are a lot of people who want to see him back in the White House. The question is it enough? Is it enough for him to win the party's nomination? And depending, of course, on who the Democrats nominate, including Joe Biden, is it enough for him to win the election? Now, remember, he's 78 years old, and of course, Joe Biden is 80. There are a lot of people on in both political parties who say it's about time for some new blood.
Yeah, don't get me started on there should be a upper limit for people in politics. That's Conan Nolan there, political correspondent for NBC. Is Donald Trump coming back?
Oh, goodness me, right.